Right, so we can see our list of messages on the screen, but obviously it doesn't look exactly as we want. So I think the first thing we should do is just create a new folder, and we can call it view, and then let's move our content view inside of that, and then let's just create a new Swift file and call it message view. And message view is going to be responsible for laying out the individual messages that we're going to be using within this list. Create a new struct and call it message view. Above view, and then at the top just import SwiftUI. So first thing we want to do is just define the message property, and that's going to be our type message. So when the message view is created on each row, we're going to get a message passed in, and it's this view's responsibility to lay that out. So let's just define our body, and then first off let's just lay out the message text. So it'll be text message.content, and let's just apply some padding and set the text color as white. Then just to get the preview up, let's just create a new struct down here, so we'll call it that, struct message view previews, and this will be our type preview provider. Static var previews, and then in here let's just invoke our message view, and then for the message we can just pass in, just for now we can pass in data source.messages.first, and that should just allow us to get our preview up here on the right hand side so we can see what we're actually working on. Obviously now we don't actually see the text on the screen because we've set the colour to white and the background colour is white. So let's just create our VStack up here. Alignment's going to be trailing, and chuck the text inside of that, and we'll just set the spacing to 0 as well. So this VStack is going to contain the message content text and the time, and here we can just set a background colour for this. Message.as current user. So if it's the current user, let's just set the colour to dark green, and if it's not the current user, let's just set the colour to mid grey, and we can just apply a bit of formatting to that, and so now you can see the text appear. Excellent. So let's now round the corners. We want to just set a clip shape, and it's going to be a rounded rectangle with a corner radius of 10, so it's already looking more like our chat bubble. And then let's just set a frame as well, frame with a max width of .infinity, and the alignment, again we're going to be doing a check to see if the user's a current user. If it is, then trailing, if not, then leading. Next up, let's add our time. Inside here, we're just going to create a new text property, and here it's going to be message.time, and for this the foreground colour, or foreground style, foreground colour is going to be light grey, and the font we're going to use is Footnote. Fantastic, and while we're at it, let's maybe just stick this in an H-stack, and we can just set an explicit spacing of 2 and put our text in that. We want an H-stack because we want the text and the red indicator to be basically grouped together within this H-stack. What we're going to do is just check if message.user.asCurrentUser, then we're going to show the red indicator here, and the red indicator is just going to be an image, and the name's going to be double tick, resizable, and the rendering mode is template, and this basically just allows us to apply a coloured overlay onto the image, because we're going to basically be applying a different colour depending whether or not the image is being read or not. So let's just set a foreground colour and we're going to check if the message has been read. If it has been, then we'll set it to blue, and if it hasn't been, then colour dot light grey. And then let's just set a width and height as well. Width 18 and height 18. The message is really coming together now. Most of the main UI elements have been put on the screen, but you can see this body property is now looking quite crowded with all the UI we've added. So I think for now, before this gets more crowded, we're just going to break some of this stuff out into its own properties. We'll start with the message text of our message text, and that's going to be some view. And then in that, we can just take this, paste it into here, and then up here, message text. Then let's do the same for time text, some view, paste that into there, time text, and then I'll just call this double tick image, and that'll also just be some view. We can just paste that like that, double tick image. For now, let's just change this condition to if true, just to force this. There's a red indicator on the screen right there, and you can see already that the body is a lot more readable now that we've broke this stuff out. So let's just set some padding on this stack view here that we've just created, this H stack. If we go down and set padding, let's set it for trailing and leading 8. And if we paste this, we'll just set some bottom padding as well. Right, so you can see that's looking good. Everything's looking like it's roughly in position. Our UI is really coming together now, but if we go back into content view and we actually call it, so we call message view and pass in message, you'll see some alignment issues. Yeah, so for these longer messages here, it stretches over the full width of the screen pretty much, apart from a small bit of leading and trailing padding. Depending if the message is from the current user or not, we want to apply a little bit of spacing here. Jumping back in our message view, it's nice and easy to solve this issue. So first thing we're going to do is just add another H stack onto the screen. Alignment will be bottom, spacing will be 15, and we can just delete this automatically created closure. So this H stack is going to wrap this entire V stack here. So right down at the bottom here, we're going to add our closing brace in like that. And this H stack is going to allow us to add padding either before the V stack or after the V stack, depending whether or not the message is from the current user. So it'll all make sense in a wee minute. So first thing we're going to do is create another variable down here and call it message spacing, and that's going to be some view, and that's just going to be a spacer, and we'll just set a fixed width on that. So width will be 80. Up here before the V stack, we can do a check. So if message.user, that's current user, then we want to add the spacing up here. And if we just copy this if condition and move it down, and here we want to add spacing after the V stack if it isn't from the current user. And then we can also just add another bit of padding here, and that just gives the V stack a little bit of margin. Then if we jump back into content view, great. So you can see it's looking a lot more like what we would hope. There's a little bit too much padding on the left and right here. To fix that, we can just set list row insets and just set that to edge insets, and then let's just get rid of the background as well, color.clear, and that lets us see our background. I don't know if you saw that there, but there's actually a little separator between the rows, so we can just get rid of that with list row separator and setting that to dot hidden. Before I forget as well, jump back into message view and let's just reset this condition because we don't really need to preview this UI anymore.